Channel, leading global provider of innovative golf entertainment and information. Devoted to the sport of golf 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The best source for golf on television.
From the Golf Channel home video, Sam Snead, A Swing for a Lifetime. Join the legendary Sam Snead and master teaching professional Jim McClean in this revolutionary new instructional tape.
As far as a pretty swing and rhythm go, I don't think that anybody matched Sam Snead.
Sam Snead, A Swing for a Lifetime. Only $19.95. Call 1-800-TGC-7566 to order today.
Also from the Golf Channel video library, the Golf Channel presents the latest evolution in golf instruction. The Golf Channel Academy with Jim McClean, now on CD-ROM.
With a click of the mouse, you can personalize your instruction using proven methods that will improve your game. Call now to receive this special offer. Let your computer and the 8-step swing lead you to a better game.
To order the Golf Channel CD-ROM, call 1-800-TGC-7566.
Hi, this is Jim McClean, and I'd like to invite you to visit my Jim McClean Golf Schools at 2 gold medal resorts, the Doral Resort in Miami, Florida, and PGA West in La Quinta, California. We offer a wide range of instruction options, and my staff of world-class teaching professionals is totally focused on improving your game. For more information, call 1-800-72-DORAL, or for PGA West, 619-564-7144.
Jim McClean Academy locations include Legend Trail, Chelsea Piers, Kayak Point, and Mariners Point. The following home video has been created from Jim McClean's 8-Step Swing series on the Golf Channel Academy and is based on McClean's book, The 8-Step Swing.
Jim McClean has long been studying the swings of the greats, looking at each swing from every angle, from Sam Snead and Ben Hogan to Tom Kite, Brad Faxon, and many others. But it's not just his work with the pros that has separated McClean from the rest. It's his dedication to the amateur player. McClean works with golfers of all levels and shares his theories with millions as an advisor on the Golf Channel Academy, a teaching editor with Golf Magazine, and through his many books and home videos. A true student of golf, McClean has analyzed every key component of the swing and has come up with 8 key checkpoint positions. Now watch as Jim McClean teaches you these keys and helps you build a solid, fundamentally sound golf swing in the 8-step swing.
You don't need to master exact positions in golf. Nobody has a perfect swing. Trying to be perfect generally leads to an overanalysis and a loss of freedom. Letting go, having freedom in your swing, is a huge key to golf success. Placing the club through certain positions can, however, produce tremendous results. These 8 steps are the key checkpoint positions I use in my everyday teaching. If you can use these 8 steps to check your swing against, you'll be on your way to building a golf swing you can count on for years to come. Hi, I'm Jim McClean, and welcome to the 8-Step Golf Swing video. Right from the beginning, I need to say that this is a very detailed look at the golf swing. It's not for the beginner or for the non-serious player, but rather it's for someone that's really trying to improve their golf game and really wants to understand what's happening in the golf swing. What I'm going to do is break the golf swing down into 8 positions. And by that I mean 8 steps or stages as you go through the golf swing. And by doing this, we'll be able to check out these different positions and see if you're doing well throughout the golf swing. Now, for example, as the club goes back here to what we call step 2, I'll look to see if it's within a range. I'm not trying to get you to swing into an exact position here where the club is lining up exactly with your hands. That's sort of a model position. But what we have is a corridor of success. So here at step 2, we don't have to be absolutely perfect. In other words, the club head lining up exactly with my hands or the club pointed right down the target line. Rather, there's an area here that we can swing the golf club in, and that's fine. We call those the corridors of success, or the parameters to which you need to swing the golf club. Now let me say there's a warning, and that is each step does contain very complete instructions. So it's easy to get over-detailed. Do not overdo it. Be careful that you're just working on simple concepts, because I am going to go through many things that can go wrong within each step. Now, coaches in all sports break down the action of their sport into manageable pieces, and that's what I've tried to do in golf. I don't try to teach all 8 positions to one person in a lesson. I never do that. But I do look at these 8 positions so that I can see where the first problem occurs in the swing. I don't want to be correcting a result, rather I want to be correcting a cause, and that usually happens early on in the golf swing. Also, instead of thinking of 8 different spots, sometimes we break it down to the basic positions, which we would say would be step 2, which is halfway back, 4, top of the swing, 6, impact, and 8, finish. So those would be 4 positions that you could look at in the golf swing so that you wouldn't have to think of 8 different places to go to, but maybe just 4. And sometimes we may just do 2. Now, in each lesson that I give, I always look at the 2 basic components to the golf swing, and that would be the golf club. What is the club doing in the golf swing? And when I look at the club, I'm basically looking at the shaft and the club face, and second, the body. And we put the club down and look at what is the body doing in the golf swing. I look at your balance, your setup position, which I call the universal fundamental setup. Watch how you wind, get back to impact, look at your body angles throughout these positions, and how you go to the finish, and look at the balance throughout the golf swing. I'm also going to talk about what you must not do, and I call those death moves.
A death move is an action or a position that is so far from ideal that it will cause you to hit poor shots forever. With a violation of swing fundamentals this dramatic, I recommend an immediate change.
So if we look at step 2 again, which gives you some room for individual preferences, if you get the club way behind you with the club face way open, you're in a position that you just cannot recover from. So I'm going to suggest that you immediately change it and get on to some good fundamentals where you can play some good golf. Now, when most people think of practice, I believe they think of a driving range, blisters on their hands, a big stack of golf balls, hitting a lot of golf balls, and maybe, for all that work, some measure of success. Now, I don't minimize hard work, far from it. But I do believe that it's very important that you work on the right things. And I see many people go to the range with not a clear idea of what they're trying to do. They don't have a game plan. So hopefully this tape will provide you with clear fundamentals and a clear idea of what you should be working on when you go to the range so that you can use your valuable practice time better. Remember, we're only going to focus on certain steps as you go through the 8-step swing. Don't try to do everything at once. One idea would be to go through the entire tape and then come back to the steps you feel are important, or maybe go back to step 6, which is impact, the most important position in golf, or the moment of truth. And when you understand where you're trying to go to and the conditions of good impact, that oftentimes helps you with your entire golf swing and your whole concept of how to swing the golf ball. So now, let's go on to step 1 and 2.
Step 1 is the point in the backswing where the club head is moved about 3 feet away from the ball.
What starts the club back? Interestingly, it should be a mini move forward. If that's a little bit confusing, let me demonstrate. Just prior to taking the golf club away, I've noticed that many great players will do one of several things. They'll either push their right knee a little forward, actually lift the right heel, or make a slight body press with the lower body forward. This little micro move forward allows them to rebound back in the backswing very naturally. It promotes balance, athleticism, and rhythm in your takeaway. I've found that this little idea here of the little press is the perfect way to start step one.
I suggest you lift your right heel slightly and return that heel to the ground as a trigger, or use a slight lower body press toward the target.
I don't think you should trigger the first move with hand action. We call that a hand press. I still see many people actually push their hands forward to initiate the backswing. Now there are a few problems with that. Number one, it creates a tremendous angle between the club and center. Number two, it tends to shut the club face as you push the hands forward. And finally, you tend to take the club too deep to the inside right off the ball. All negative moves. So remember, the first move in the backswing is actually slightly forward. Then comes the first move back. This should be a one-piece action. In other words, everything together. Shoulders, arms, hands, hips, and shift.
Weight distribution in the feet can be sensed early. You're off your left foot and onto your right. Sensation in the feet should be strongly felt, while the movement of the club should be unforced and have an involuntary quality to it. As the club first moves back, your head may move laterally a bit on any full swing. Although the head naturally moves, both eyes must remain on the ball. The head's slight lateral motion accommodates a rotation of your upper spine and weight shift onto your right leg. Many great ball strikers have early lateral head motion. It is very rare that you'll find a superior player without a lateral shift. It is virtually impossible to swing around the spine with no movement and keep any athleticism.
So early on, the axis of the swing is shifted from being centered at address to the inside of your right leg. The right leg becomes the backswing pivot point. By that I mean we shift slightly over to the right and to the inside part of the right leg. The right leg is the post you will turn on. It's critical that you maintain the flex in your right knee during this step. By that I mean this right knee here must maintain its flex. Not straightening up, but staying nice and flexed as you go through the early steps of the swing. The right leg is your brace. It accepts the weight transfer and helps maintain your shoulders and hips at address levels, meaning that the hips now and the knees will turn more level. Think of your takeaway as a move to the side far more than a rotation around the center of your body. Golfers who think turn as they go to step one are highly prone to employing a reverse pivot. That is, loading weight onto the left foot instead of the right foot.
The club shaft, meanwhile, stays between the arms. There is no conscious effort to guide the club. The club face stays square to the arc of the swing with no conscious rotation. There is a sensation that the club is swinging away freely, with no rigidity of the hands and the arms. At the same time, control is maintained. You can feel exactly where the club face is located and how it is positioned. In a natural swing action, which follows an arc, the club head rises up gradually along that arc.
If the big muscles of the body are used for the takeaway, there will be no quick or jerky motions. Rather, the pace is slow and smooth, setting the stage for good tempo with every shot. Many times, the only swing thought a top player will have is smooth takeaway. If you have correctly established the right leg as the backswing support post, you can pivot with a connected, one-piece action. You'll be off to a smooth start, and it's a takeaway you can practice and perfect. It's also a takeaway you can repeat under pressure, and is a major key to consistency. Here are some basic guidelines that you should remember in order to repeat this step consistently every time you take the club back.
Ignition. Use some slight motion to ignite your takeaway. Whichever trigger mechanism you choose, practice it and stick with it. Start your swing with momentum. One piece. Take the club head away from the ball smoothly in a one-piece motion, making sure that your body stays level and is free of any tension. Shaft position. When the club head is approximately 3 feet from the ball, check to see if the club shaft is still between your arms. Weight distribution. Weight is shifted onto the inside of your right leg, and you have maintained the flex in your right knee.
I can't stress this enough. Do not think about these things during the swing. Focus on them during your practice time, and then only if this part of your swing is a problem. With such a small initial move, you wouldn't think that much could go wrong, but that is precisely why this first step is so important. There is plenty that can and does go wrong. Dipping or raising your head and body in the backswing is a killer because every action causes a reaction. And by that I mean, if you dip forward, dip down in your backswing, your weight will go toward your toes, you'll be off balance, and on the follow-through, as you come back to the ball, you're going to have to lift up, which requires a tremendous amount of coordination and timing. Generally, is going to really kill you. If you lift up or pull up in your backswing, this will cause your weight to go too much toward your heels, and you'll tend to lunge at the ball on the downswing. So both of these moves are death moves. A fast move away from the ball is a death move because it throws your timing off right away and indicates an overuse of the hands at the beginning of the swing. The problem with this is you lose your tempo at the beginning of the swing, plus the club runs away from your body. You're not in sync. When the hands work with the body and things work together, we're in good shape. When the hands and the club take off, leaving center behind, we're in real trouble. When your weight stays left or even shifts left as you start to take away, this is the beginning of the classic reverse pivot. Remember, we have two pivot points in the golf swing, the left leg and the right leg. Both of your legs hit the ground. People who reverse pivot often think of their head as a pivot point or try to turn around their spine or try not to move in their backswing. This then causes them to turn into the left leg and they stay in front of the golf ball, never get behind it. When this happens, we have sort of a twisting action of the hips. The hips never get that little motion into the right leg, and the person twists. The right hip actually goes away from a line drawn off the right leg. The left hip goes toward the target. From this position, early on in the backswing, you're dead. Tension. Freezing over the ball with no waggle, no little ignition move here from the beginning of the golf swing is a killer. It's a killer because tension always ruins the golf swing. We need relaxed, soft muscles. We need to stay in motion. Remember, the great player stares at the target and glances at the ball, while the high handicap player always tends to stare at the ball, glance at the target, and then have too much tension early in the takeaway. When we see somebody overextend the club back, they are either trying to keep the club straight back in the takeaway or trying to keep their left arm super straight. And this is a pretty common problem. What I see is we have an extended left arm here at address, but we have the ability, because of the elasticity in our arm and shoulder here, to overextend. We have that mobility here in our shoulder to overextend. So if you disconnect right off the beginning of the takeaway, you can actually take the club to the outside. Whereas if you stay connected here with your left arm, you will never take the club to the outside. We see a significant amount of people at Doral roll the club to the inside too quickly in this fashion. Now, a number of things happen right here. One, the left arm leaves the body. Two, the right elbow attaches to your side. Three, the club face gets rolled wide open. And fourth, the club gets way too far inside and also too low. So from this position, ladies and gentlemen, your history. The game's over, you're toast. Now, with all of that information in mind, I'd like to give you a drill you can practice at home so you can master the first move in the backswing. To do this drill, stand in front of a mirror and you can use the base of the wall as your target line. If not, put 2 clubs down on the ground. Now, grip down on the club about 12 inches so the butt end of the grip will point right to your stomach and actually touch your belt buckle area. From here, the club will be about 1 foot off the ground and pointed at the base of the wall or my target line. Practice the backswing. When you do this properly, the club will stay in center, will stay against your belt buckle, and you'll feel a little weight shift across your feet. You'll start to feel the weight go to the inside part of your right leg. And that's the correct move. And when done right, it's very simple. You'll also notice that the club automatically goes slightly to the inside with no effort on your part. Now here's what can go wrong. The club coming right out of center, an immediate disconnection will be very obvious, or your weight staying in your left leg, or twisting. Those are the moves that we must avoid. Remember, this simple move, if done correctly, will promote consistency and something that you can repeat every time under pressure. Step 2 is when the club shaft is parallel to the ground and the butt of the grip is pointed approximately at the target. This is an important checkpoint. Although there is room for personal preference, it's interesting to note that at this split second, the club head is as far from the target as it will ever get. The club face is square to the arc of the swing, with the toe of the head basically pointing upward. At this step 2 position, when you're 1/4 of the way through the swing, nothing should be badly trailing or leading. The club, arms, and shoulders have stayed connected as a single unit. This is your backswing package. At step 2, everything is worked together. There are 4 important checkpoints that need to be addressed at this point in the swing that relate to what we have been discussing. You need to make sure that you have shifted most of your weight onto your right foot. Retain the same degree of flex in your right knee as you started with at address. Retain the flex in your left knee with it broken inward and pointing behind the ball. Kept your right arm slightly above your left arm or well above your left arm. At step 1, we felt weight shift to the inside of the right foot, and by step 2, most of your weight now is into your right leg. This is very important because we have 2 points hitting the ground, the right leg and the left leg, and we must make sure that we are turning on the right leg in the backswing. At this stage of your swing, it's very important that the right knee has retained its flex. We don't want it to lock up here or slide to the outside, causing your weight to go to the outside of your right foot. At this stage, the left knee is broken inward and started to cock behind the golf ball. We don't want the left knee to freeze in place or to start to go too far to cross your center line and the left heel to come off the ground. In this position, when the hands are about at hip height, the right arm must be visible above the left. Although this is a fairly easy position to assume when stationary, when we bring movement into the equation, problems can and do occur. No hip turn or weight shift. This indicates that the legs were dead and the takeaway was controlled too much with the arms. Locking of the knee. Over rotation of the hips or reverse pivot accompanies this loss of knee flex. Rolling the club face open. This is caused by overactive, independent wrist and arm action. The club face is in an extremely shut position. This error is the result of a manipulation of the club with your hands or an exceptionally flat shoulder turn. If you assume a weak left-hand grip or reverse pivot, you're likely to shut the club face. Excessive extension of the left arm. This error is most often caused by the player who pays too much attention to the old adage, keep your left arm straight. The long left arm is actually an overextension from the shoulder. It is indicative of an early disconnection in your backswing. The right arm or the right elbow folding in towards the body. The high handicapper makes a conscious effort to hold the right elbow against the body on the takeaway. This is totally unnatural and it causes a major power loss. Now here are a couple of drills for step 2. 1, split your hands a couple inches apart. Practice going halfway back. It's almost like you're just shaking hands with somebody behind you right here. You just take the club right back, and this will give you a great feeling of that right arm easily being above the left. It would be very uncomfortable to go this way and very obvious, so that split grip is a terrific drill. Last drill. Lay a club down just on the outside of your right foot on your target line. Go to address and practice taking the club to step 2. And at this point, this club will be right on top of the club on the ground. You'll check to see that the toe is basically up and that the club is lining up here. If you have some big angles, you know you're starting to get in trouble. That was step 1 and 2. Now remember, step 1 is the one-piece takeaway, everything working away together in sync. Step 2, halfway back, remember we're going into the braced right leg. Still have the flex in the right knee, and interestingly enough, this is the furthest away that club head will ever be from the target. Now, let's move along to step 3 and 4. Now, step 3. The club now goes to the 3/4 position where the left arm is now parallel to the ground. The club is turned upside down and is pointed at the sky. And by that I mean at address, the club is pointed at the target line or down at the ground, and at step 3 it's actually turned upside down, and we've formed an L position between the forearm and the club shaft. So you've pretty much completed your wrist cock at step 3. The club shaft will point down at the ground. To be perfect, it would point right at your target line, but there's some variance here. The club could point all the way down to your toe line or out to the target line. We start to get in real problems when the club gets off balance, starts to point more at the camera over here, or gets pointed inside your foot line. That gets your right arm too high. At step 3, we would like your elbows to be quite level. Also would like the club to feel light, and it will when the club is pointed up. It would be nice if you could feel the same grip pressure from address to step 3, not changing. One other interesting point is looking at your left hand or your knuckle count on your left hand from address to step 3. When you look here, I would like to see the same knuckle count. If you start adding knuckles on, the club face is getting open, and if you take knuckles off, it's getting closed. So that's a nice little checkpoint position for you to check each time going to step 3, which is a very important position in golf. Finally, make sure that that left arm doesn't cross all the way across the left part of your chest here. When the left arm goes across, that really means your right arm is going too far behind you. And that is, again, one thing that I often see as a major mistake at this point in the golf swing. Now that you've finished with this step, traveling to step 4, the completion of the backswing, is really just a matter of momentum. There's still a little bit of wrist cock to be finished, but otherwise we're just about ready to return back to the ball. There's really only one serious problem I want to mention with step 3, and that's what we call right knee lockup. And that happens as we go through this area of our swing. The right knee locks up, straightens up completely. Now this is a very serious problem because the whole right side will straighten up. Your right hip will tend to rotate way too much. You'll get way too much hip turn by this stage of the swing, and that will really reduce your coil. What I would like to have happen is for you to stay pretty much in your flex here as you go through step 3. Now, staying in your flex allows you to turn your hips absolutely as much as you want to. You really can't overturn them. When that knee locks up, however, you really can get too much hip turn, which destroys the coil of your backswing. So there you have it. Step 3 of the 8-step swing, a critical point in which you get your club 3/4 of the way to the top. We're going to take the club and choke down with our hands almost down to the club head. Then when we swing the club back, the butt end of the club will point down at the ground, and we'd like it to point right down at our target line or slightly inside. The dangerous positions would be when the butt end of the club starts to point at the camera this way, or in this direction here when the right arm goes up high, the left wrist cups, and the butt end of the club starts to point behind your toe line. So this little drill right here will give you a nice little feel for where that club should be. Remember to chuck the knuckle count on that left hand so that you're not adding on knuckles, which is opening the face, or taking knuckles off, which is closing the face. Step 4 is where you have completed 100% of your shoulder turn and the backswing is finished. The upper body has completed its windup and the uncoiling of the lower body has already started. However, because the lower body initiates the downswing before the upper body finishes turning back, there isn't a defined end to one phase and a beginning to the next. Obviously, a player's size, flexibility, and physique make for different looks and lengths to the full backswing position. That's why I say to make your own personal 100% turn on a full shot. For some, that's 100 degrees. For others, it may be 75. Remember what I've so often said, though. There isn't one perfect position at the top. It is not a fundamental. However, there are certain basics for a sound backswing. So let me show you what should be happening with certain body angles and positions. At step 4 in the swing, the separation of the hips and shoulders is now complete. At this point in a full swing, your shoulders have rotated anywhere from 80 to 100 degrees, and your hips have turned between 40 and 60 degrees. Your left shoulder is behind the ball and close to being in line with the inside of your right leg. In general, the shoulders turn twice as much as the hips on most shots. Your left knee should be pointed slightly behind the ball, but is stable. Your left heel may be slightly off the ground for longer shots. It's okay for the heel to come off the ground if it's pulled off as a result of a proper pivot, but it should never be consciously lifted. Meanwhile, your right knee has retained its flex and is stable. You shouldn't lose the flex in your right knee or you're likely to give up the good body lines you established at address. Your knees have turned about 25 degrees at the top of the backswing. The lower body has already started back to the left. The knee turn is about 25% of the total shoulder turn and about 50% of the hip turn. Your weight should be toward the right heel and on top of the right foot. This is very important. If the weight goes to the outside of the right foot or toward the toes, your balance is impaired badly. Good footwork in the backswing is critical to good shot making. You want to roll weight off the inside of your left foot. You need ankle flexibility for this rolling, so practice it as much as you can. Also, connection of the left heel with the ground is important. On most shots, the left heel doesn't leave the ground. On longer shots, it shouldn't come up more than a few inches. Your footwork should be rhythmic. It's useful to think of your golf swing as a dance step. Your chin has finished its rotation by step 4. For some players, this can be as much as 45 degrees. The average is about 20 to 25 degrees. Also, after studying the swings of hundreds of top professionals, there is usually 1 to 4 inches of lateral shift of the head. None of the great players freezes their head in the address position. Your left arm may be slightly bent at the elbow. The key is that it should be firm, but not stiff or full of tension.
Golfers seem to have read so much about a straight left arm that they tend to consciously stiffen it to avoid any bend. Rather than a plus, this is usually a problem.
Once you've completed your pivot, keep your hands quiet. A lot of players who want to gain distance by increasing the size of their swing arc will keep swinging their arms and hands upward after the pivot is complete. This almost always backfires. Overswinging the hands causes a disconnection between the swing center and the club.
The club shaft gets thrown above the plane and will cross over the ball to target line. This keeps you from making a flush impact and sets up the slice or any number of weak shots.
There isn't a perfect wrist position at the top of the swing, none that will guarantee a return of the club head to the ball in a completely square angle. Many top players have a closed club face at the top, while others have it slightly open. I'm only concerned when my students have a super shut or super open club face at step 4, or when they can't square the club face from their top of the swing position. The arms swing in front of your body center. Even though momentum will carry the arms somewhat up and across the chest, a good swing thought is when the shoulders stop winding, the arms stop swinging. Now that we're comfortable with step 4, it's time to give you some death moves to avoid.
First, even if you had yourself in good positions through steps 1, 2, and 3, you're at a risk of tipping your body weight back to your left side if you overturn your shoulders with the arms continuing at step 4. That little extra you strive for at step 4 can lead to a legitimate death move. Remember, it is possible to overturn. Second, in a natural swing, the club face always appears to open in the backswing, then close again through impact. Step 4 should find it in a position that allows you to get to impact square. If the club face is turned too far skyward and is extremely closed at this point in the swing, trouble awaits you. This position is almost impossible to recover from. Last but not least, if you're wide open at the top, you'll tend to throw your hands at the ball through impact and hit a slice shot or shot right of the target. This wide open position is very common in high handicappers, so use video whenever possible to check your at the top position.
I'd like to show you 2 drills for step 4, the full backswing. The first drill is one of my favorites. It requires 2 golf clubs. Take the first club and lay it down on the ground and position it just off the inside part of your right foot. Then take your normal address position and take the second club and place it up against your shoulders in this fashion. Now from here, we're going to make our backswing coil, which will include some shift, rotation, and turn, and try and match these 2 clubs up. When I turn back, I will see from my view that these clubs sort of match right up. So when I turn back, it looks like this. Now when I've done that, I know that I've moved my center the right amount to the right. I've gotten behind the ball and I've kind of lined up my right side. I want to keep my right knee flexed when I do this, and also when I do this, I'd like to see that my shoulder turn is fairly level. It's very common to have people do this, get too steep with their shoulder turn. It's also possible to be too flat. But as I look down, it seems like these clubs match up and my shoulder turn is very wide and quite level when I do this correctly. The second drill can be done at your house or at the golf course. If you do it at home, do it in front of a mirror. And I would suggest you put a strip of tape on the mirror as a guide. That tape will help you see if you're sliding out with your right hip or if you're reverse pivoting. I want you to feel that this right hip goes directly backwards in the backswing and that you stay in this area with your right leg. Remember, we have the 2 legs that hit the ground, our 2 pivot points in the golf swing. So on our backswing, we have to wind into this right leg. Now at address, place your hands out in front of your center in this fashion so that the thumbs touch. The reason I do this is because when I go back, I see a lot of people have their hands fly apart. So this helps you keep your hands together. and it'll look like this. We wind and hold. We can look in the mirror in this direction and see if we have wound up correctly. Now from the back view, you can see when you do this properly that your elbows are very level. We're not like this or like this, so we can get our arms in good position and our hands have stayed close together. They have not flown apart. So with that strip of tape on the mirror, that is a guide for you to look at so you can kind of monitor your motions and see that you get a good wind up, that your left knee travels the correct amount, it's not going too far, you're not lifting up early off your left heel, or reverse pivoting with your hips, or sliding out with your hips. The mirror is a great tool and will help you tremendously to make the right movements and get the right body angles at step 4, the top of the backswing. That was step 3 and 4. At step 3, when the club turns upside down, the club is now pointed up in the air, we can check that knuckle count and make sure that we see the same amount of knuckles on that left hand as we did at address. Step 4, up to the top of the backswing, the completion of the arm swing and shoulder turn. The elbows are quite level to the ground. Okay, let's move on to the all-important step 5. If there's a secret to a good golf swing, this is it. In the great golf swings that I've studied, there isn't an exact start and stop that together reverse the direction of the club from backswing to downswing. But there is a smooth, flowing transition. The arms, hands, and club all respond to the actions of the lower body, with the club head being the last thing that changes direction. In the transition, your arms and hands are passive. The first move is actually backward and down, and the club head sinks lower as your hips start to unwind. Your hands, wrists, and right elbow respond to the reversal of direction, then automatically drop into the proper slot by your right side. The step 5 checkpoint position actually looks a lot like step 3 in many respects. From a head-on view, the hands and club shaft look like they're passing through the same positions. The right shoulder helps determine the path of the downswing. If your right shoulder rocks down, all systems are go. Thanks to that shoulder, your right elbow can now drop into its proper slot and align with your right hip. This lowering of the right shoulder is a response to the legs initiating the forward motion. But if the first motion is initiated by your right shoulder out toward the ball, you have no chance to attain the correct positions at step 5. In a model swing, the hands and arms are passive during this step. They respond to the actions but don't initiate them. The right elbow appears to be glued to the right side just above the hip, and the left arm is fully extended from the body, straight. It's easy to see here that step 5 is a very connected position. Your hands and arms haven't run off, but are simply responding to the body motions. The downswing is inside or narrower than the backswing. Your wrists are in a fully cocked position. If the club gets outside your hands, then either you're casting, you're starting a releasing motion too soon, or you're exaggerating the initial rotation of the shoulders. Also at step 5, body weight has shifted back noticeably to the left. It has recentered as weight is shifting both forward and diagonally left. Your center will slide 7 to 12 inches toward the target between steps 4 and 6. This hip slide is a natural response to the lower body initiating the downswing. It happens automatically. If you check out the belt buckle on any top player, you'll see a good example of this powerful lateral movement. Due to the proper sequencing, the shaft should have fallen down along a path that, when seen from the target line, is defined by the tip of your shoulder and your right elbow. If the shaft stays in this corridor of success, the butt end of the club points to an extension of the ball target line. This means an on-plane swing and promises solid contact and good trajectory. Use this checkpoint list to make sure that you're in good position when you're starting down toward the ball. The right knee is kicked forward toward the ball or target line, and there's a substantial space between your knees. From the top, the right knee is kicked forward and toward the ball target line. If it doesn't, if it slides down the inside line here, then there's a great danger that you'll be sliding your hips far too much. If the right knee doesn't move at all as you come down, you'll tend to throw the club or cast too early. The hips have shifted a few inches in response to your weight shifting motion and reach the square position. The shoulders trail the hips. Now, if this doesn't happen, if there isn't this little motion to begin with, then the shoulders will actually catch up to the hips. Very bad. The head has stabilized at or slightly behind its address position. If it doesn't, if the head slides in front of your address position, then your only alternative is to throw your hands and the club at the ball. That's the only way you'll be able to hit it. You'll be out in front of the golf ball. The right heel is grounded, or at the most only a few inches off the ground at this point in the swing. It should never be extra high or way off the ground. That would indicate that you've shifted too quickly off your right side and that these knees are too close to each other at this point in the golf swing. The flexed left knee is forward of the left hip, and the left knee is more or less in a straight line with the middle of the left foot. The left leg is still flexed, but is just in the process of beginning to straighten. Now, if this doesn't happen, if we come down and the left knee doesn't move at all, then we're going to be hitting back off our right side, kind of falling back behind the ball to hit it. That's kind of the rock and block action that we don't want to have. Make sure when you practice this move down to step 5 that the club shaft is on plane. That means it lines up with your hands. It can be slightly inside or under the plane, that's okay for a draw, or slightly outside, which again is okay for a fade, but make sure that we're not way under the plane, coming too far from the inside, or way over the plane, coming too much from the outside. A good golf swing depends heavily on connection, but in the downswing we also have 2 instances of separation. From the top of the backswing, the hips sort of leave the shoulders. They get the running start, so there's a little separation right there. And then as we go down to step 5, or the delivery position as I call it, the hands separate from the shoulders. There's an increase here. The arms and hands separate and get away. Now, the negatives would be to go up to the top and stay together, or to have the shoulders and hips go at the same time. Both of these would be mistakes. My great friend Carl Welty showed me this delivery position about 25 years ago, and it's been a tremendous aid in my teaching and has really helped me show people how to get the right inside attack. From the top of the swing down to position 5, the right elbow is slightly visible underneath the left arm. This is very important. I'd like to show you that a few times. Now, the mistake would be to have the right arm on top of the left arm as you start down, which would be the right side too high, or your right arm extending too quickly on top and throwing the golf club from the top of the swing. As we start down, the club head is behind the body. Down to step 5. The opposite, the mistake would be for the club head to get out. Should make it very steep, and a bad mistake, very common, we see it very often. Many golfers will benefit by slowing down the turn back to the target. Sometimes it's useful to slow down the upper torso, other times the lower. And that would look something like this. From the top of the backswing, the problem we see is people start with their shoulders and they're opening up too quick, which throws the club on the outside. So one cue could be to keep your left shoulder in the shot a little longer, or keep the right shoulder back to allow the club to come down from the inside. Another problem we see is when the hips get too fast, they open up too quick. Well, when we do this, sometimes we need to feel a little slow down of the right leg and a slow down of the left hip. So when you start down, you feel like you're a little slower right here and you don't open that left hip up so quick. Either one of these tips will help you hit more from the inside. Now, even though I just showed you the negative effects along this checkpoint list, they are not definitive death moves. What I'm about to show you are. Club shaft tip over. That's when the shaft works out, or actually steepens on the downswing, tips out forward. Now the club shaft is supposed to react to your body, and your hands are passive at this stage, so the shaft should work actually a little bit the other way. This is a very common mistake when the hands start the downswing and the club shaft moves out in a very steep angle of attack. When this happens, you either throw the club early, or the hands get so close to the golf ball there's really no powerful way to hit it. All you can do is flip your hands, the shaft will come in very steep, or you will actually pull the club down and take a very deep divot across the golf ball. Right elbow back. That's when your right elbow stays back behind your body as you start down. It's usually accompanied with the shaft falling too far to the inside and even having the club head underneath your hands at this stage. Now there's some real problems here. When you come in, your left arm is off your chest, a serious disconnection. You're coming way too far from the inside, and your right elbow is trapped here. You're going to have to flip the club now to hit the golf ball, or drag the club way inside out. So this is a very serious mistake. Body slide. When your body slides ahead of its address position, your head has gone forward, you are in a death position. Now this is normally caused by the legs not doing anything early on to initiate the downswing. So the legs go dead, the upper body drifts in front, and now you're past the golf ball. All you're left to do is to slap at the golf ball with your hands. Club face problems. From the top of the swing down through step 5, if the club face gets extremely closed or extremely open, we're dead. Let's look at extremely closed first. As we start down, if that club face gets shut, all we can do is hang on and block the ball down the fairway, which will be a major power loss, or if we release the golf club from here, the ball is going to go big time left. The other problem would be to start down with the club face wide open. And again, this is a very common mistake that I see. When that club face is open, we just are not going to be able to square the club face up. So the question is, how far right is this ball going? Now, if we hang on at all, it's going to go off the charts to the right. Otherwise, we're going to try and slap at it and square it up with our hands. Again, a huge power leak. Drill number 1 comes from a friend of mine, Ralph Terry. Ralph was a great pitcher for the New York Yankees and also played the senior PGA Tour. I was the head professional at Sleepy Hollow Country Club in Scarborough, New York in the late 80s and early 90s, and we hosted the senior tour event. When Ralph stayed with me, we'd go out in the backyard in the evening and play some baseball with my boys, and also we had a place to hit golf balls. So Ralph loved practicing in the evenings, and we would fool around with different things. One night he showed me a great drill to teach my boys for Little League Baseball, because they had a tendency to bail out. So he gave them a little check swing drill. And what they did is start with their feet together and step toward the pitcher and check their swing. And when they did that, the bat would fall down and they would be moving their body in the right sequence of action. So I thought about that for golf and made it the Ralph Terry drill for golf. And what we do is go up to the top and start down, but check your swing. But really feel like you're going to hit the golf ball. So make it an aggressive move. So it's up to the top, down. Up to the top, down to checkpoint 5. And right here, we'd like to hold that club so it's parallel to the ground. Your hands are off your right leg. The right knee is kicking a little bit forward. The left knee is up on top of your left foot. You can do this in front of a mirror and get a great feeling of getting an inside attack. A lot of people will start in the wrong way, a little more with their shoulders, and they'll automatically see that club go to the outside. When you can do the check swing drill, the Ralph Terry drill, you'll be well on your way to feeling the right move down to impact. Now the second drill is a split grip drill, or the right arm and right finger drill. And we do it this way, up to the top, and then I just simply take my right hand off the club and put my right forefinger and thumb on the shaft. There's really no pressure here at all. Then what I do is show people that as they start down, if they start down with that little shift move and then the rotation along with that right shoulder going down, it's just a little move like this, the club will fall right into a beautiful position. There's no pull in the left arm trying to drag the butt of the club at the target. It's simply letting the club fall down. So I'll let you look at that a few times. No pressure at all in my left arm. Right up to the top, down. Those two drills should help you really sense how to get through step 5. There you have step 5. This tremendously important area of the golf swing, from the top of the swing down to delivery, the change of direction. Few things to remember. When we start down, there's definitely a lateral shift, and the lower body starts the action. Then as we do that, the club falls down into the delivery position, halfway down. Right elbow out in front of your body, and you're in perfect position to hit a long, straight golf shot. Now, let's move to step 6, the moment of truth, impact. Let's explore impact. A wonderful sensation to feel at impact is the right side firing fully and the club face covering the ball. How do you achieve this feel? Let's take a look. The left wrist. It must be flat or slightly arched, or bowed, or if you want to be technical, supinated at step 6. The worst power loss you can experience is the inward collapsing of the left wrist at impact. Common causes of this power loss are a slowing down of the hands through impact, which happens when a player attempts to steer the club head into the back of the ball, or an over-acceleration of the club head in which the hands release too early. In a still frame, you would see that over-acceleration causes the club shaft to line up with the right arm, a major mistake. Both conditions result in a great loss of power. They're not discussed often, but these two swing malfunctions are very common among high handicap golfers. The right wrist. It must be angled at impact, not straight, to match up with the flat left wrist. The angle of the right wrist is one of the very few characteristics that replay the look of the address position. Therefore, the right wrist must not hinge forward. The hands and wrists must work together throughout the swing, and they can't if the right wrist hinges independently. The left arm and club shaft, when viewed from above, should line up with each other. The shaft can't lag too far behind the left arm, nor can it pass the left arm before impact. Both of these conditions indicate serious mistiming of the swing. Weight. It should have transferred to the left leg and is on the left foot more toward the heel. The right heel is approximately 1 to 4 inches off the ground. Some players will feel a push off the right foot through impact. The right knee. It should have fired forward at step 6, up to about your body center line. An effective timing key is to think right knee and hands back to the ball together. The left knee will still have slight flex to it. The legs are spaced apart from one another, rather than having the right leg passing over and catching the left. If this happens, The probable cause is too narrow a stance, too much hip action, or overly fast leg action. There should be space between the legs. They can't be together. This is a clear indication of too much slide. The right elbow. It should be very close to the right hip and still shows a slight bend. The right heel should be ahead of the right toe. I always look closely at footwork. The chin. It should have returned very close to its starting position or is now pointing toward the ball. On wood shots, the head may even be slightly behind where it started. The hips and shoulders. They have maintained some spacing and a degree of separation. In other words, the hips are leading the shoulders, and the shoulders must not catch up to the hips. The body. Your body center should stand up a little bit at impact, and that's because we're using the ground as leverage to get power into the swing. As far as head movement is concerned, some golfers' heads at the time of impact will have moved slightly behind their original address positions. Without question, the head moves during the golf swing. Trying to freeze your head in one location can be a poor idea. It causes tension and inhibits athletic motion. Typically, the head moves forward because the legs don't. When you succeed in locking your head into position throughout the swing, you generally create trouble for yourself in other areas. The head reacts naturally as a result of the motion and the turning of the body. To attempt to restrict it completely is counterproductive. So allow your head its natural motion and to move in a small area. Just keep your eyes focused on the ball until impact, and it's unlikely that your head will move more than it should. Many amateurs have a tendency of swinging the right arm out and away from the body. In effect, the typical high handicapper throws the club at the ball, and it looks something like this. Up to the top, they see the golf ball down here, and they throw the golf club at the ball. Now, the problem with this, the worst problem with this, is that the left wrist breaks down. And when the left wrist breaks down, that adds loft to the golf club. It also makes the bottom of your arc behind the golf ball so that you get a scooping action. And many beginners actually learn to hit the ball this way because their main objective is to get the ball into the air. The problem is when you hit the ball like this, it's the weakest possible way to strike the golf ball. The breakdown of the left wrist is the biggest power leak you can experience as a golfer. So this is something that we must avoid. Because impact occurs in an instant, 4/10,000ths of a second, it may seem odd to devote a great amount of attention to it. Indeed, some students find it difficult to think about impact. Yet, I've found that working back from perfect impact alignments is an excellent teaching technique. Visualizing perfect impact positions and making lots of practice swings that stop at impact helps you feel the sensation of a good impact position. I'd like to show you some drills to help you on your way to achieving this critical position. Drill number 1. I'm going to bring a golf bag out here because I don't have an impact bag. You could use an impact bag, or you can even hit up against a tree. But something to make you feel this resistance here at impact, like you're hitting against something. Once you get there, you can kind of press the shaft a little bit against the bag. We'd feel the right knee kicking, pressure off the inside of the right foot, weight in the left post, and the hands leading the action. That will give you a great feeling of impact. Let me move this out of the way. The second drill is simply to practice open, closed, and square impact alignments. And this will help you feel different positions to produce different shots. For example, go up to the top of your backswing, start down, and have the club come back to square. And when you do that, I'd like your right elbow in front of your right hip. Then come down and have it closed and hold. And you might repeat that a few times if you have trouble hooking the golf ball. Come back and hold that golf club closed. Make sure the hands are leading the club head, but just feel that club face turning over. And then do it the other way. Open. And this will train your muscles to sense hooks and slices and straight shots. The third drill is a drill you can do at your house. Use a wall and put your head right up against the wall. Your hands then will hang just inside the wall. Basically, your eyes almost over the middle of the grip. Now from here, you'll practice going up to the top. Don't be afraid to let that head turn a little bit and move slightly to the right. From the top, start down and make sure you do not allow that head to slide in front of its initial starting position. Another great thing with this drill is you'll feel your hands attacking from the inside. If your hands go out and hit the wall, obviously you've made a bad mistake there. So up to the top, impact. Up to the top, impact. And practice that key head positioning so that you're not sliding in front of the golf ball. Now, I'd also like you to remember these key points about impact. Remember, a flat left wrist or slightly arched left wrist at impact is critical. Never allow that left wrist to be cupped or bent backwards. Big time power leak. At the same time, your right wrist is bent. It has not straightened out. So that straightened right wrist goes with the bent left wrist. Make sure when you come to impact that you practice your footwork and see that your right heel is in front of the right toe. You'll be pushing off the instep here and moving right over. That will make your weight go solidly onto the left leg. It's a big mistake to have that right heel backing up. Also, at impact, make sure that there's some space between your knees. If the right knee is fired too far, the knees are getting too close together, you'll be sliding too much and jumping off your right side way too fast. There you had step 6. To review, address and impact are very different, and this is incredibly important to understand. This is what we're trying to achieve in a good golf swing. Now, let's move on to steps 7 and 8 to finish off the golf swing. You know, the swing does not end at impact. There are still 2 more steps left in building a complete, fundamentally sound golf swing. Right now, we're going to discuss one of those final 2 steps. Step 7 of the 8-step swing, the early follow-through. This is the segment of the swing that falls between impact and the point at which your right arm is approximately parallel to the ground. Let me show you what I mean. From impact through early follow-through, this positioning right here. Some of the poor positioning and mistakes that occur at this point are the results of much earlier errors and problems. But other step 7 mistakes crop up during and right after impact. The most notable problems at this stage tend to stem from the breakdown of the connection between the left shoulder area and the upper left side of the chest. This is perhaps the most important in-swing connection in golf, and letting it break down leads to several major flaws. First, the hands and club overextend down the target line. This way. We disconnect the left arm and overextend toward the target. Second, the left shoulder remains in view past the point at which it should. That means from the face-on view, as I'm watching a player, the left shoulder area stays in the shot too long and the club passes over. We call that wraps by the body. The result is a bad hook or a push. Third, the left elbow slides across the golf ball in a sawing motion. In a face-on view, the left arm breaks down and the left elbow points up in the sky. I'll show that to you. Coming down through here, the left arm breaks down, gets pulled across, and the left elbow points up in the sky. Looking up the target line at the golfer as he or she completes step 7, you should observe that the line of the club shaft extends out from a line of the right arm with only a slight angle at the hands. I've noticed that a good player's club shaft makes nearly an unbroken straight line with his or her right arm just past this checkpoint position. Moreover, the continuing rotation of the hips and body center through impact allows the golfer to remain connected through step 7. A negative to avoid at this step is don't allow your left shoulder to overclimb. This drops your right side too far under and puts you in a classic block position. What we'll do here is choke down again on the club until the butt end of the club is a few inches away from your belt buckle or center. Then you just practice without a ball going through. When you do this, you'll have a great feeling of the center of your body and your hips rotating with the golf club. What we don't want to have happen is for center to stop and the arms to go by or the hands to flip on by you. We want things to stay together here. Now, when you actually hit a golf ball, you might want to split your hands just a little bit, and this will give you a real good feeling of how the hands and arms work through. You'll get the feeling of the right arm and right hand covering, your whole right side covering the golf ball as you go through, and keeping the left arm connected to your left side. So the arm is not coming off your body. And that will look like this, just a little bit of a split, boom, through. And you don't have to hit the ball hard. Just a little miniature backswing and through. Now if you practice this little drill and have this same space you had it at address, keeping it through, you'll have the feeling of the toe of the club passing over the heel. You'll have the toe of the club back up, and your right arm will be out in front of your left. Just exactly the way you want to go through the golf shot. In the final phase of the swing, your momentum takes you to a completed follow-through position. Your hips and shoulders are fully rotated, and the club is behind your head momentarily before it returns to a relaxed, balanced position in front of your body. From this position, you just watch the ball travel to its landing area. The return of the club from behind your head is called a rebound or a reflex action. This is the area I call hit and evaluate. When you hit, hold, and evaluate your shot, you are accomplishing 3 important things: optimum balance, optimum feedback, and optimum feel. Because all of the motion of the swing is over, the finish and the rebound are fairly easy aspects to establish and to evaluate. In a mirror, you should see, for example, that your right shoulder finishes closer to the target than your left shoulder. As you return the club to a waist-high position on the rebound, you should feel that your grip pressure there has remained constant throughout the swing, from address to finish. Your basic grip hand position from address is also the same. If you're looking in a mirror that is pointed at you from the target area, you should notice that the club shaft crosses through the middle of your head at the full finish position. The plane of the club shaft may well match the plane of your shoulders. I don't like to see the club flop vertically over your shoulders like a heavy laundry bag. Let me show you what I'm talking about. At the full finish position, if I'm looking into a mirror here, that club would point right through the back of my head, which you can see on the camera behind me. And it may well match my shoulder angle. I would not want to see the club flopped straight down my back like the heavy bag of laundry. During the downswing, weight travels across your feet in a rolling action. The front foot holds its basic position as a brace against the force of the body, the arms, and the club as you contact the ball. If you spin your front foot from its original orientation, your swing will be out of control and you'll lose power. This counterclockwise movement of the left heel is usually a compensation for poor balance earlier in the swing and indicates a spin out. Ironically, this foot fault may actually help you regain balance as you move to the top of the finish. But the spin out is a bad sign. No top player makes this move. If anything, great players like Jack Nicklaus and Greg Norman, for example, may actually move their left heel forward or the opposite direction toward the target on the downswing to brace themselves further and to provide a force to hit against. By making a balanced athletic swing and holding your connections together, you can hit a hard golf shot and finish at an exact stop. Many top players practice by swinging full and then holding their finishes like a statue. Normally, the only time you will see a tour pro incapable of holding his or her finish is when he or she has made a hard swing from a dramatically uneven lie. But the poor player shows this teetering type finish on shots from flat ground. Avoid this and always be conscious of balance. I learned this drill from Gardner Dickinson back at Frenchman's Creek many years ago, and what he had me do was start the club back off my right toe and put the club face relatively open. And that's because the club face is going to be squaring up or closing down as you come through the ball. So we actually place the club on the ground back off the inside of my right foot and inside my target line. I then drag the club up to my impact position. Drag it right here, and then I'm going to continue on, dragging it on past. And it'll feel like a no hands type release going through this. As I go through a little further, I start to let my left arm bend, my left elbow break here, and then I drag up to a full finish swing, and it'll look like this. There you have steps 7 and 8. Few things to remember. Just after impact, as we go into the early finish, the arms first straighten out. And this is a very powerful move and something important to remember as you go through impact and into early stages of step 7. From here and up to step 8, we go to a good full balance finish up on the right toe and then rebound the golf club back to watch our golf shot for the evaluation process. You know, I've covered a lot of ground in this video. Take your time to analyze where and what you need to do with your golf swing. I highly recommend that you use the building block approach for golf. This is the way to learn any sport and is, in fact, the way top coaches teach their sport most effectively. Good luck with your golf swing. I hope this tape will help you for years to come. I'm Jim McClean.